So, hello everyone. In this lecture, I will be conveying the co-evolutionary narrative between or of the city of Kolkata and the East Kolkata wetlands. So, these are the concepts which will be covered through this lecture. This is the route map or the structure of the presentation. So, where first I am going to discuss the ecological incentives or disincentives, and I will explain why this is both ecological disincentives and incentives that plays major role in the British decision of selecting Kolkata as the seat of the imperial capital. Then I will be talking about the hydrological manipulations which were kind of implemented by the colonial rule under the British, under the British hydrological engineers and the municipal officials, people from the irrigation department and so on. And then finally, I would also discuss the parallel evolution or the simultaneous evolution of the East Kolkata wetlands along with the evolution of the city of Kolkata, and that is why I call it co-evolutionary narrative. So, finally, we would see how this hydrological manipulations led to the emergence and birth of Kolkata's wider ecological infrastructures in the form of this widespread wetlands and marshes. Now, this is a very famous poem by Rudyard Kipling. Thus, the midday halt of Charnock moors the pity grew a city. As the fungus sprouts chaotic from its bed, so it spread. Chance directed, chance erected, laid and built on the silt, palace, byre, hovel, poverty and pride side by side. And above the packed and pestilential town, death looked down. So, this is in this poem, Rudyard Kipling he is not happy about this particular site because it is totally infested with kind of diseases, wilderness, the condition is extremely insanitary. So, we get all the negative negative understandings about this particular site, and this on the right hand side you will see an adapted and a modified map, the first ever map of the site that is available in the archive. So, you see here there are three villages, Shutanuti, Kolkata and Gobindapur, and then you see the Bhagirathi Hooghly river on the left, and this is one of the major distributaries of the river Ganga in her lower course, and then you also see the Adi Ganga river, again another stream of the Ganges river, and there are creeks, some natural creeks or canals, inlet canals, and in the on the eastern side you see the salt water marshes. So, overall the site has been described as wild, as unhygienic, as insanitary, and so if you see the last two lines in this poem, so it talks about the this town has been, or this site rather, has been kind of explained or described as pestilential, and the mortality rates were quite high because of the insanitary, unhygienic condition of the site. Same things we also of course get similar kind of reactions and responses from the early British or the early colonial infiltrators. So, these are some documents and books which are available at the West Bengal State Archive, and also some of the documents are also available in the town hall, and some archival materials we also get in the annex building of National Library. And if we compare, if we kind of go through all these archival documents, the correspondence, the gazetteers and several other kinds of records and reports, we find similar kind of reactions or similar kind of narrative from these sources, from the colonial officials. So, for example, this is quoted in Dave, but this is actually from this is from William Hunter, W. Hunter, who has kind of composed different accounts of different districts of Bengal, and this is on the 24 Parganas and the Sundarbans, and you can see that how for example, Hunter is talking about the dampness of the region. So, this quote for example, the jungle jungle, the dampness of the soil, the impure air, so all negative connotations, right, blowing from the Sundarban and the saltwater lake standing in its vicinity. You have also already seen the saltwater lakes in the map on the right hand side, were all insanitary factors, and Calcutta in consequence was the picture of unhealthiness. So, you can see how the site, how Calcutta has been described, it is an icon or it is a symbol of unhealthiness. So, living creatures were no less a source of danger, okay, because it was like infested with wild boars and other dangerous creatures according to the British, than the forces of nature. So, wild boars, crocodiles, alligators, reptiles and leopards infected the place. So, you can imagine the intensity of wilderness, and man was as much a source of danger as the beast, okay, for thieves and robbers abounded. So, this is the portrayal that we get about the site. Similarly, in similar vein, F. P. Strong. So, F. P. Strong, he wrote this particular account. It's entitled like Topography and Vital Statistics of Calcutta. So, F. P. Strong was a health practitioner by profession, and you can see his narrative of the site. So, he says, let us look around us, and we find all the essentials necessary for the formation of malaria. Beyond our city jungles, lakes, marshes, gardens crowded with trees and woods of every description, and weeds, stagnant water, filthy pools and low grass jungles of every kind surrounding the villagers' habitation. So, it was an ideal space, an ideal place for which proved to be the breeding grounds of mosquitoes, mosquitoes causing malaria. So, in this exist ample means for a constant supply of the poison. So, it was a toxic environment, assisted as they are by the natural heat and moisture of the climate. But when unnatural or meteoric changes of climate take place, or when unnatural inundations of sea or river water occur, then we find disease and death scourge the land, as was instanced by the inundation of 1833 in particular, and as shown by all the others. So, he also cites and quotes other records, other documents where similar kind of environment had been projected so far as the description of the site had been concerned. Now, then the major question which we should ask is that if this space, if this place or the site was so unhygienic, so wild, then finally, why did the colonizers, why did the British select her as the imperial capital? Not only select her as a city where they wanted to kind of develop settlement, but Calcutta also became the capital city, and it was the capital city of India till 1911, before the Delhi became the capital city of India. So, what were the incentives? Did the incentives surpass the disincentives? So, that is a major question I think which we should ask here. So, actually the answer is yes, because the ecological incentives surpassed, and they were the incentives were much more compared to the problems or the challenges associated with this particular space. So, what were the incentives? Number one, the river Hooghly that you had again seen on the map on the left bank on the left hand side of the site. So, the river Hooghly, again one of the major streams of river Ganga in her lower course. So, Hooghly on the left, the Vidyadhari, the Adi Ganga on the right, and the saline marshes, the salt water lakes bordering the east. It was together it can be considered a system of natural channels which could then be interlinked. And why was this interlinkage important? Because the British could really see the prospect of the growth of this settlement as a commercial hub, and that is why the Calcutta port was constructed immediately. So, yes, these channels and this entire system, it actually offered possibilities for the growth and development of both inland and external trade. Shrutanutty, you have also seen Shrutanutty, so above Kolkata. So, Shrutanutty, that particular point was the highest point at which the river was navigable for sea-going vessels. So, yes, they could actually notice, they could actually calculate, the prospect of the emergence of this site as a port area. And then on the other hand, these eastern swamps and marshes, of course, they were breeding grounds of malaria. It kind of I mean, the atmosphere was malarial, but at the same time, you know, these eastern marshes also proved to be, I mean, a space which then the enemies or the people who were not wanted, it was difficult for them to actually cross, you know, those marshes and then infiltrate into the site. So, that was, so eastern marshes and swamps invulnerable to the enemy. This was also another incentive actually. Then as this particular space, it was wild, but it was not totally uninhabited, because, you know, Shutanuti, we see already there were people, there were weavers, there were cotton traders who were inhabitants of Shutanuti before the coming of the British. So, the, you know, it was not totally uninhabitable, but at the same time it was not crowded. So, the cost of land acquisition was cheaper. The cost of land acquisition was cheaper because the place, of course, also had its disincentives. So, it was a volatile space with vulnerable topography, but at the same time which showed signs of habitation. Thus, you know, if you see this particular diary, it is called the Shutanuti Diary and Consultation. It is one of the very important historical records dated 1698, October 3, 1698. The East India Company officials, they say that, you know, this was actually the best money ever spent. So, we know now that in spite of being wild and in spite of being unhygienic, how and why, you know, this site was finally selected by the British for their I mean, which could facilitate commercial trade and transaction, and that is why I call this the victory of site over situation. So, and I think I have been able to explain now that why, you know, this can be scientifically understood as the victory of site over situation, situation which otherwise seem to be very, very wild. Now, once the decision was made that yes, this would be the site where we would like to establish, you know, we would like to establish our commercial settlement, then the next sets or series of actions could be clubbed together, could be categorized under what I call colonial hydrological interventions or colonial urban hydrological intervention in the form of the excavation of canals. So, excavations means it is not always excavation of the entire canal, but sometimes, you know, linking some of the natural canals with each other and in some of the, like, because this is a very silty area. So, in some cases it is also demanded, you know, a little bit of dredging. So, I mean, the costs of maintenance were high, but, you know, the returns were also very, very high on investments. So, we see that, you know, after the decision was made, then how tamed interventions were conducted in the form of the emergence of this canal system or the canal network. So, you see it is one of the brilliant examples of engineering feat. You see the city of Calcutta growing, expanding. You can compare this with the earlier map that I had shown before. So, you see the, you know, the Hooghly river and the city of Calcutta expanding, you know, the space, the area, and so many other canals, you know, were cut and excavated and linked with the natural channels, and how this entire riverine scape, this land water scape was actually manipulated by the British engineers through series of what I call tamed interventions. Now, as I already discussed before, you can imagine how these canal systems or, you know, the canals, they performed they perform significant role and functions in facilitating colonial trade and commerce. So, these canals can actually be considered as arteries of trade. So, these are some tables, again, you know, you will see the sources. So, they are from, so I have consulted different I mean I have consulted primary sources, I have consulted some administrative reports, proceedings, and the compilations and accounts of colonial surveyors and officials like O'Malley, LSS O'Malley, C. Adams Williams, Inglis and all, and from all these different reports and records and from the colonial archive, then I have been able to kind of compile this data. So, these tables show this data. You can see, for example, the first table, if you take a look at the first table, you see the names of the canals and the years of execution. So, you can see all the these are all the most, these are the 5 most important canal, and you also should add the name of the Adiganga Talisnala canal with it. So, the 6 most important canals, it form part of the Eastern Canal system, and on the right hand side of the table you see their years of execution. So, you see that between the early 19th and the early 20th centuries, so this 100 years, it can be considered as the golden age so far as this excavation of canals or the emergence of the canal network is concerned. Now, the pros and cons, the costs and benefits, for whom, who were the beneficiaries, who were the non-beneficiaries, these are questions which need to be tackled separately. But so far as excavation is concerned, then of course, this long early 19th to early 20th century can, there is no doubt if we can use, or if we can use the epithet of the golden age of canal construction of Kolkata, so far as this particular period is concerned. Then you see other tables where you also see that why this site was actually lucrative to the British, and how the canals facilitated colonial calculus of rule and colonial agenda of kind of getting huge returns on investment. And you see that these are the years, and these are the amounts, the collections which were made, because where were the collection made? They were the toll posts. So, for every canal you will see toll gates and toll posts where revenues were collected. So, you see that this is just one example, the right hand side table, the big table, and the source is the administrative report on Calcutta and Eastern Canals and Nadia rivers 1868 and 69, and you see the names of articles. So many articles, so many different commodities like coal, indigo, salt, castor oil, rice, fabrics, these were the commodities which were transported through the Talis canal. And these are the names of chowkis, the toll posts, Shamukpota, Rosha and Khidirpur. These were the these were the 3 major toll posts on the Talis canal, and on these toll posts the collections were made. And you see the how profitable this entire venture was. And I should tell you that during this time, that is roughly between the second half of the 19th to the first half of the 20th century, the bulk of trade that was done through canals, it was like 7 to 8 times higher than the bulk of trade which was done through the Eastern railway system. So, this is such a significant data, but now if you come to Calcutta, unfortunately you will not even realize that these canals played such an important role, because now they have transformed into mere nallas, from navigable canals to mere nallas, which means like sewers or drainage canals. So, this is a very, very important map. And so, if you again compare the maps one by one, so you remember the early map, the earliest map that I had shown you in the slide, then you had seen the map where I put it under colonial hydrological manipulations to showcase, to demonstrate the series of tamed interventions which were then kind of conducted on the like riverine space of Kolkata. And then you see this map, you can see all the different canals that you also saw in the previous map, but here your focus has to be on these 2 oval circles. This is the river Bidyadhari and this is the river Kulti. Now, in 1828, the river Bidyadhari was officially declared to be dead, and I think I considered this as the turning point in the ecological history of Calcutta. I will explain why. Now, first of all, why did the Bidyadhari river decline? I mean, there are a number of reasons. First of all, one needs to remember that this is still a deltaic space. So, and delta ecosystems are very dynamic. So, always you will see the rise of new rivers and the decline of older canals and streams and inlets, and then there will be chor formation. Like, it is a very dynamic, it is a very volatile geomorphological space where you will continuously see dynamic geomorphological configurations, right. So, due to both natural causes or natural reasons and also series of artificial interventions, because water was also taken from river Bidyadhari to feed some of the excavated canals. So, and that is how the experts explain this. They argue, because I had also interviewed number of irrigation department officials, and they also pointed out that yes, due to both natural causes and artificial interventions, Bidyadhari river started declining. So, the volume of water started declining and deteriorating in the river, and so ultimately in 1928 it was officially declared to be dead. Now, why do I consider this to be a turning point in the ecological history of Calcutta? Very important, because this Bidyadhari river was a tidal river. It still is a tidal river, and this river was responsible for, because it was connected to the salt water marshes, and it carried saline water from the Bay of Bengal, because just below we have the largest mangrove delta, the Sundarbans. Okay. So, the Bidyadhari river carried the salt water, saline water for Bay of Bengal, and as the eastern part, the salt water lakes area, like it was undulating, it was a low lying land. So, the Bidyadhari spilled its water in that area, and the water became stagnant and could not move out. So, this is also the reasons how the salt water lakes function, and it remained marshy and saline. But with the decline of the river Bidyadhari, I mean, it was like a kind of a lockdown, almost a lockdown period in the British attempts to collect revenues, and so far as this entire system, technological system was concerned. So, there were lot of debates and discussions that which river could then replace the Bidyadhari, because the Bidyadhari was also the most important sewage outfall channel for the city of Kolkata. So, it was a sewage outfall channel for the city of Kolkata, and now it was dead. So, what would be the alternative outfall channel for the city of Kolkata now? And you have to remember, by this time 1928, Kolkata already it expanded, it became a big city, and the demographic pressures were also high. So, what to do? Then I will not go into the debates a lot, but I would just say that there were debates between the colonial officials, the Indian engineers, and finally one of the Bengali engineers, B.N. De, he made a design and in consultation with others, and this is known as the B.N. De scheme of the Kulti river or the Kulti lock gate. So, Bidyadhari was then replaced by the Kulti river, which was then selected as the outfall channel for the city of Kolkata, but this caused a major change, a departure in the ecological scenario of the whole setting. Why? Because all the different excavated canals then started carrying sewage water. Most importantly, there were two very important sewage canal. So, one is this dry weather flow, which carried Kolkata sewage or effluent, and other one is the storm water flow, which carried the rainwater mainly, and then these canals were interlinked and with each other, and then the sewage or the effluent was carried to the Kulti lock gate, to the Kulti river finally. And then what happened is that, so there was a major change in the ecosystem situation of this particular setting, because from saline water marshes, then gradually became the freshwater marshes. Why? Because the canals carried the effluent, and in between you can see this map and this map here. So, once the Bidyadhari river so once the Bidyadhari river declined, and once this canal directly carried the effluent, no more I mean they carried the non-saline water to the Kulti. In between a system emerged, a system evolved where the fishers started practicing pisciculture, inland fishing experimentations with sewage, with effluent. So, it came up as the resource recycling, I mean on the wise use, using wise use principles of resource recovery mechanisms. The fishers, they started pursuing piscicultural activities by growing fish on sewage water, and this is how the East Kolkata wetlands was formed. So, now you know that why and how we need this entire history, we need to know this entire history to really understand the emergence or the birth of the East Kolkata wetlands. And so, I would like to place it as the co-evolution of the city and her wetlands. So, how the emergence of the city actually also crafted the birth of the East Kolkata wetlands. And this is the contemporary map from the East Kolkata Wetland Management Authority website, where you can see the boundary of the city of Kolkata in green, and you can see the boundary of the East Kolkata wetlands in red, and you see how they intersect with each other, and how and why that is why we should understand it as a kind of a co-evolutionary narrative between the two. So, these are some of the like references. So, I have put the most important references where you see old books by the British officials, like the statistical account of Bengal by Hunter, for example, and also the recent works. Very recently, for example, in 2018, Debjani Bhattacharya had written this phenomenal book, path-breaking environmental history for the city of Kolkata, and she had shown how the city had been kind of reclaimed from her marshes. So, this I would definitely kind of request you to go through at least the introduction of this book, Empire and Ecology in the Bengal Delta, the making of Calcutta. And then these are some of the other references. So, I wrote this book called Blue Infrastructures. You will get some more references about this book as well. And here I also try to kind of combine political ecology with environmental history to again see the different dynamics. So, Debjani's book, it's still limited to the colonial period. For me, I had kind of expanded the time span and covered both the contemporary and the colonial period. And for me, like backcasting, like I have used environmental history as a backcasting technique to really understand the contemporary dynamics in a more scientific way. So, you can also go through the book, at least if not the whole book, but at least the introduction. So, I would like to conclude by highlighting the key points that I had covered in this lecture. So, the first important argument is that the British calculus of rule, the British calculations of making profits facilitated the selection of Kolkata, Calcutta at that time as the imperial capital. So, in spite of so many complaints that the space was wild, the space was unhygienic, insanitary, but still they could understand there were a lot of calculations of the fact that ultimately this site is the site which would be able to fulfill, accomplish our entrepreneurial motives. So, that is why the space was selected as the colonial capital. Then once this decision was made, the best money I have ever spent, they said it, right, if you remember the Shutanuti diary or consultations. So, when this best money was spent, then the next series of actions were in the form of hydrological manipulations of the space, in the form of excavation of canals and reclamation of marshes. And then finally, it is also about the birth and the emergence of the East Kolkata wetlands as an unintended consequence, crafting the co-evolutionary narrative between the city and a wider ecological infrastructures. So, it is about this urban ecological inheritance that we need to be aware of.